During breakfast, my son slid a note under my plate. It read, "Leave your phone here. Don't look back." I froze, staring at him in confusion. A few minutes later, my phone, still sitting on the table, started ringing from an unknown number. Everyone at the table turned to look at me. If you're hooked by this beginning, make sure to subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. My name is Margaret Collins, though most people call me Maggie. I am 72 years old, a retired school librarian, and I live in a quiet neighborhood in the suburbs. My mornings are usually simple: tea in my favorite china cup, eggs and toast, and a crossword puzzle by the kitchen window. Since my husband passed away years ago, I have treasured the moments when my family comes to visit. On Sundays, my son Daniel often joins me for breakfast. He's 40 now, a hard-working man who seems to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. My granddaughter Lena, just 25, is full of energy and ambition. She reminds me so much of her mother, my daughter, who lives out of state. Lena comes often because she says my house feels like home, and I love nothing more than hearing her stories over coffee. That morning, the table was bright with sunlight, the smell of fresh toast filling the kitchen. Lena was laughing about a coworker who had tripped over a box at the office. Daniel sat across from me, unusually quiet, poking at his scrambled eggs. I teased him, saying, "Daniel, you never put that phone down. One day, you'll have square eyes." He gave me a quick smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Something was wrong, though I couldn't quite place it. As I watched them, I felt a wave of gratitude. Family breakfast may seem small, but to me, they are everything. After losing so much in life, these mornings make me feel alive again. I thought it would be just another peaceful Sunday. I was wrong. The note Daniel slipped under my plate changed everything. The note under my plate shook me more than I wanted to admit. My son Daniel's handwriting was clear, sharp, and urgent. "Leave your phone here. Don't look back." At first, I thought it was some kind of joke, the kind of overprotective thing he might do to keep me off social media or to remind me not to get distracted at the table. But when I looked up at him, I saw the seriousness in his face. His jaw was tight, his eyes locked on mine, and he gave the slightest shake of his head. Before I could ask him what it meant, the sound of ringing filled the room. It wasn't a cheerful ringtone or the familiar chime of a notification. It was a sharp, piercing sound that cut through our breakfast like a knife. My phone was still sitting on the table, right where I had left it. The screen glowed, showing unknown number. Lena froze with her teacup halfway to her lips. Her eyes darted to me, wide and uncertain. Daniel's voice was low and firm. "Don't touch it, Mom." The ringing continued, long and unbroken. I felt my chest tighten. Against my better judgment, my hand inched toward the phone, but Daniel caught my wrist. "No," he said again, louder this time. "Leave it." The ringing stopped, but silence didn't bring relief. Instead, a faint crackle came from the speaker, and then a voice. It was distorted, deep, and unnatural, as though it came from far away and too close at the same time. The voice said one word, "Margaret." I felt my blood run cold. My name had never sounded so wrong, so threatening. Lena gasped and grabbed my arm. Her fingers trembled against my skin. "Grandma? Who is that?" I didn't know. I wanted to say it was just a mistake, a trick of technology, but my throat was dry. The voice returned, clearer this time. "She belongs to us. You can't keep her safe." Lena's grip tightened on me until it almost hurt. I looked at her, and in that moment, I realized the voice wasn't talking about me. It was talking about her, my granddaughter. Daniel snatched the phone off the table and held down the power button, his face set in anger. The screen went black, but the voice continued, seeping out of the darkened speaker. "She will not make it home." Lena let out a small cry, her eyes brimming with tears. "Why me? What does this mean?" she whispered. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "It's nonsense," I tried to say, though my voice trembled. "It doesn't mean anything. You're safe here." But inside, my heart was racing. I had lived through enough years to know when a threat was real, and this one was as real as the beating of my heart. Daniel finally slammed the phone face down on the table. The voice went silent. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the tick of the kitchen clock. My tea had gone cold. The smell of toast that once felt so comforting now turned my stomach. I looked at Daniel. What's happening? What do you know? He shook his head, frustration in his eyes. Mom, this isn't a prank. Your phone has been compromised. Whoever this is, they know your name. They know about Lena. This isn't random. Lena shook her head quickly, her voice breaking. But I don't even know anyone who would do this. Why would someone come after me? Daniel's jaw tightened. It's not about you. It's about Mom. And whoever this is, they're trying to get to her through you. His words made my stomach twist. Could someone from my past be doing this? I thought about the years I had spent as a librarian, the people I had known, the parents I had comforted, the children I had scolded. Could one of them, after all these years, be trying to hurt me by threatening Lena? The idea seemed impossible, yet the fear in my granddaughter's eyes was undeniable. Lena whispered again, I don't feel safe. I don't want to go home tonight. I pulled her hand into mine and squeezed. Then you won't. You'll stay here. No one is going to touch you while I'm alive. Daniel nodded in agreement, but his face stayed grim. We need to take this seriously. If someone has been watching us, if they're listening to our phones, then they already know too much. The room felt smaller, as though the walls themselves were closing in. I had always thought of my house as a safe haven, a place of warmth and love, but that morning, as I sat at my own breakfast table with my family clinging to me, I realized that safety was gone. Someone out there wanted to shatter the life we had built, and they had already started. I looked at Lena, her eyes wide with fear, and made a silent promise. Whoever this was, they would not win. I would protect her, no matter the cost. The rest of breakfast sat cold on the table, untouched. None of us could eat after what had happened. My granddaughter Lena sat close to me, her hands trembling in her lap, while my son Daniel paced back and forth like a caged animal. The air in the room felt heavy, as though the voice we had heard still lingered in the corners, waiting for us to let our guard down. Finally, Daniel stopped pacing and planted his hands on the table. Mom, we can't ignore this, he said firmly. His voice was low, but the urgency in it made my chest tighten. Whoever that was, they know too much. They know your name, and they know about Lena. That wasn't some random call. Someone is watching us. Lena shook her head quickly, her eyes wide. But why me? I don't know anyone who would do this. Why would they want me? Her voice broke on the last word, and I reached out, wrapping my arms around her shoulders. Your family, I whispered, pulling her close. That's enough for them. They want to hurt me, and they think going after you will break me. But I won't let that happen. Daniel leaned forward, his jaw tight. We have two choices. Either we call the police right now and let them handle it, or we make sure Lena isn't alone for even a second. Lena's voice rose in panic. The police? What if they don't believe us? What if they think we're making it up? A phone talking on its own, it sounds insane. Daniel rubbed his temples. I work with tech, Lena. Phones can be hacked. Devices can be controlled. Whoever did this is skilled. But the part that scares me is what they said. This isn't just about technology. This is personal. The room fell quiet again. I looked at my granddaughter, her eyes red, her lips trembling, and felt something inside me harden. I had spent years being the one everyone leaned on for comfort. My students had come to me for guidance. My children had come to me for safety. And my grandchildren had come to me for love. I was not about to sit back and let fear strip that away. I placed my hand on the table firmly. Lena is not going back to her apartment tonight, I said, my voice steady even as my hands shook. She's staying here where I can keep her safe. Lena shook her head, panic flashing across her face. Grandma, I can't. I have work in the morning. I have meetings I can't miss. I can't just hide here. I turned to her, my heart breaking at her fear, but I refused to bend. Your job will still be there tomorrow. Your life is what matters. Do you think your mother or I would forgive ourselves if something happened to you? No, Lena. You are staying here. Her lips quivered, but she didn't argue. Instead, tears slipped down her cheeks, and she whispered, I don't want to be alone anywhere. Daniel crouched down beside her and took her hand. You won't be. Not for a single second. If you need to go back to your place for anything, we'll go with you. But for tonight, you're staying here." Lena nodded, though her shoulders still shook. I pulled her into my arms, stroking her hair like I used to when she was a little girl afraid of thunder. For a moment, I wished this could all be solved with warm milk and a lullaby. But this was not childhood fear. This was real, and it was closing in on us. Daniel stood, his voice firm. "We need a plan. If we just sit here, they'll win. We're going to Lena's place tonight, together. We'll check it out, make sure it's safe, grab what she needs, and then she's staying here with you, Mom. That way she won't have to worry about what she left behind." The thought of walking into her apartment after hearing that voice sent a shiver down my spine. Still, he was right. We couldn't live in fear of the unknown. We had to face it, even if it terrified us. I squeezed Lena's hand. "We'll all go. I won't let you step into that apartment alone. If someone is waiting for you, they'll have to get through me first." Her eyes widened. "Grandma, I can't let you put yourself in danger for me." I smiled faintly, brushing her hair back. "That's what love is, sweetheart. You protect the people who matter to you, always." The three of us sat in silence, each of us knowing that when night fell, we would be walking into something unknown. But the decision was made. No matter what waited in the shadows, we would face it together. I looked at Daniel, and he nodded back at me. We were no longer just a mother and son, or a grandmother and granddaughter, sitting at a breakfast table. We were a family preparing for a fight. And deep inside me, I knew one thing for certain. Fear may have knocked at our door that morning, but it would not break us. The drive to Lena's apartment felt longer than it should have. The streets were quiet, but the silence inside the car was louder than any traffic could ever be. Daniel drove with both hands tight on the wheel, his eyes scanning the road as though danger might jump out at us at any moment. Lena sat in the back seat beside me, her arms folded tight against her chest. She leaned into me, her head resting lightly on my shoulder, and I could feel her heart racing just from the way her body trembled. I tried to stay calm for her sake, but inside, I was terrified. I kept replaying the words of that voice in my mind. "She belongs to us. She will not make it home." Whoever had said those words knew exactly how to plant fear deep inside me. For 72 years, I had believed my home was a place of safety. Now, even the comfort of family breakfast felt broken. When we pulled into the lot outside her apartment, I knew something was wrong before Daniel even spoke. The lights in Lena's windows were dark, though she always left the lamp near the couch on. Worse, her front door stood slightly open, just enough for the night air to slip inside. Daniel cursed under his breath and parked the car quickly. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice firm. He reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a heavy flashlight. I grabbed his arm before he could get out. "Daniel, be careful," I whispered. He nodded once and stepped out. I followed close, holding Lena's hand so tight, I worried I might hurt her. Her breathing was shallow, and she whispered, "I locked it. I know I locked it before we left." The door creaked when Daniel pushed it open. The sound was sharp and unsettling in the still night air. The moment we stepped inside, my stomach turned. The place that had been her safe little apartment was in ruins. The cushions on the couch were slashed. The stuffing scattered across the floor like snow. Books lay torn, their spines broken. Drawers were pulled out and emptied. The air smelled of something damp and metallic, like rust and mildew mixed together. But what froze me in place was the wall. Hanging there had once been a framed family photo. Me, Daniel, and Lena at a picnic years ago. Now the glass was shattered, and Lena's image had been torn clean away from the rest of us. The pieces of her face lay on the floor, trampled. Lena let out a broken cry, covering her mouth with her hands. "Why are they doing this?" she whispered. Daniel swept the room with his flashlight, checking every corner. "Stay close to me," he ordered. But even as he said it, my phone in my bag began to buzz. My heart lurched. I hadn't even realized I was carrying it. The screen was black, lifeless, yet the speaker crackled with that same distorted voice. You shouldn't have come. Lena clung to me, her nails digging into my arm. Daniel grabbed the phone, his jaw set in anger, and threw it against the floor. The voice didn't stop. It filled the air, louder than before, as though it came from the walls themselves. She will not leave this place. You cannot protect her. Something in me snapped. I was no longer just a grandmother terrified for her granddaughter. I was furious. My voice shook, but I shouted into the darkness. Who are you? What do you want from her? Silence fell for a moment, and I thought maybe it was over. Then the voice returned, slower this time, dripping with malice. She will pay for what you owe. The words hit me like a blow. What I owed? My mind raced back over my life. I had been strict as a teacher, yes, but fair. I had made mistakes as anyone would, but never enemies I thought would seek revenge in this way. Still, the conviction in that voice told me this wasn't random. This was tied to me somehow. Daniel's flashlight beam swept across the kitchen and living room again. No one was there. The apartment was empty, yet the threat was real enough to make the air feel heavy. He turned to me. We need to get out, now. This place isn't safe. I nodded, though my knees shook. I pulled Lena toward the door, whispering, We're leaving. You're not staying here tonight. She didn't argue. She clung to me like she had when she was a little girl afraid of thunderstorms, her tears wetting my sleeve. As we hurried toward the exit, the phone on the floor crackled one last time. The voice whispered so faintly I almost thought I imagined it. Too late! Lena screamed and Daniel spun, shining the flashlight across the room. Nothing, only broken furniture, torn books, and the hollow silence of a place that had once been hers. We rushed into the night, the door swinging behind us. Out in the parking lot, Lena sobbed into my shoulder, and I held her with all the strength I had left. Daniel called the police, his voice sharp and urgent. My hands trembled, but I did not let go of her. Whoever this was, whatever debt they believed I owed, I would not let them take her. As the sound of sirens grew faint in the distance, I knew one thing with certainty. This was not over. It was only the beginning. When the police finally arrived at Lena's apartment, their flashing lights cut through the darkness like a lifeline. Officers stepped inside, carefully moving through the destroyed living room and kitchen. They took photographs, gathered broken glass, and noted the torn photo on the wall. One of them turned to us and said, "There's no sign of forced entry. Whoever did this either had a key or knew how to get in without leaving a trace." That answer brought no comfort. If anything, it deepened the dread that hung over us. Lena clung to me as though letting go would make her vanish into the night. I held her tightly, my heart aching at how fragile she looked. She had always been so full of life, always eager to take on the world. Now her bright spirit seemed dimmed by fear. The police promised to assign a patrol car to her block and urged us to stay somewhere safe for the night. Daniel thanked them, but his expression told me he trusted no one but himself to keep us safe. We gathered what little Lena needed, her laptop, a bag of clothes, a few personal items, and left the apartment behind. As we pulled away, I looked up at her dark windows and felt an anger I had not known in years. Whoever was doing this had invaded her life and stolen her peace, and for that, I would never forgive them. Back at my home, the three of us sat at the kitchen table, the same table where the nightmare had started. The clock ticked past midnight, but none of us could think of sleep. Daniel kept his laptop open, scrolling through security forms, trying to trace signals and find any clue that might explain how the phone had been hijacked. Lena sat across from me, her eyes red from crying. She fiddled with her necklace, a small silver locket her mother had given her. I reached across and took her hand. "You're safe here," I said softly. "No one can hurt you while you're with me." Her lips trembled. "Grandma, what if they follow me forever? What if this never stops?" I squeezed her hand. "Fear only wins if we let it. You're stronger than you think, and you're not alone. You have me," and your father, Daniel, looked up from his laptop. "Mom's right. Whoever is behind this is clever, but they're not invincible. If they left a trace, I'll find it. If they're watching us, we'll turn the tables. I won't let them control our lives." I admired his determination, but deep inside, I couldn't ignore the words of the voice. She will pay for what you owe. What could I possibly owe that would lead to this? My mind returned to my years at the library, to the countless students I had taught, to the disputes I had helped resolve. Could someone from decades ago still carry enough bitterness to lash out like this? The thought seemed unbelievable, yet the evidence was right in front of me. As the night dragged on, the weight of the day pressed heavily on me. I walked down the hall to check on Lena, who had finally lain down in the guest room. She looked so small under the quilt, her breathing uneven, as though even in sleep she couldn't escape the fear. I sat by her side for a while, stroking her hair just as I had when she was a child, afraid of thunderstorm. Back in the living room, Daniel was still at work. His face was lit by the glow of the screen, his expression tense. He looked up at me and said, "We'll figure this out, Mom. Whoever thinks they can scare us is wrong. They picked the wrong family." I nodded, though I couldn't shake the gnawing worry in my chest. But then I looked at him and thought of Lena, asleep in the next room. That was when I understood something important. This wasn't just about fear or threats. It was about love. Love that refuses to surrender. Love that grows stronger when tested. By dawn, the first light of morning slipped through the curtain. For years, sunrise had always meant peace to me. That morning, it meant something different. It meant survival. It meant that despite the voice, despite the fear, we were still here, together. The police called later to say they had found nothing useful. No fingerprints, no cameras catching anyone near Lena's apartment. It was as though the intruder had been a shadow. Daniel grew frustrated, but I simply felt more resolve. If we couldn't rely on outside help, we would rely on each other. I promised Lena that day that she would never face this alone. I told her, "As long as I live, I will protect you. Whoever they are, whatever they want, they won't take you from me." She nodded, tears filling her eyes, and whispered, "I believe you, Grandma." That was the moment I realized my role had not ended with age. Protecting the ones we love is not bound by years. It is bound by the strength of our hearts. The voice might return. The danger might still be out there. But I was no longer the quiet grandmother sipping tea by the window. I was a protector again, and I would face whatever came for us. If this ending gave you chills, subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from.